they are seeking, followed by their name. We will begin with 90-second opening statements from each candidate before moving to the question and answer portion of the event, which will include 10 questions. The candidate answering the question first will have 2 minutes to respond, and each subsequent candidate will have 90 seconds to respond. Our timekeeper, Ann Martin, will have a timer running, so keep an eye on your time. When the timer turns yellow, you are out of time. If we are ahead of schedule at the end of the event, and after our scheduled questions, we will take questions from the folks in attendance today. If you would like to submit a question, please type it into the chat. At the end of the question and answer portion, candidates will have 90 seconds each for closing statements. And with that, I'll pass things over to our state party representative and King Conservation District Supervisor, Chris Porter, for candidate introduction.
Thank you, Jordan. I want to welcome all of the candidates, and thank you, Madam Chair, for putting this together. We're going to start with introductions and opening statements. Jordan, did you cover how long the opening statement would be?
Yes, 90 seconds.
Oh, okay. I must have not here. Thank you. And so I'll begin with we just have a random order. So we'll begin with the introduction and opening statement for Hugo Garcia. Hugo?
Can you guys hear me?
There you are. Yes.
Okay. Let's try that again. All right. Make sure.
34 Dems.
Oh, all right. Oh. I'm an immigrant from Mexico that came here as an 8-year-old kid and was raised right here in the 34th district the past 30 years in an immigrant working family that ran a small family business. I went to public school here locally at Sherwood Elementary, Cascade Middle School, Evergreen High School, and I helped my parents navigate the complexities of a small business and everything as an interpreter, from medical emergencies to banking issues. I went into community banking because of those challenges, and I've done firsthand work the last 20 years helping small businesses, particularly BIPOC businesses, one-on-one through the Great Bank Recession and now through COVID as a small business advocate. I've been living in Burien since before it was incorporated as a city, seeing its transformation and growth firsthand through the last housing crisis, having to live in a duplex because my brother and I couldn't afford to stay near our parents otherwise. This is why now today I've been serving the last 4 years on the Burien Planning Commission and the Business Commission to use that lived experience to improve on those inequities. And that's why I'm running for Burien City Council position 1. Thank you for this opportunity, and I look forward to meeting everybody. Thanks again.
Next up is Council Member Crystal Marks.
Hey, good evening, everyone. My name is Crystal Marks. My pronouns are she and her, and I am the current Deputy Mayor of the City of Burien this last year and this year as well. I hold position 7, and I'm seeking re-election to the Burien City Council, still for position 7. Over the last 3.5 years, 4 years by the time of re-election, Burien has undergone a huge shift. We have shifted our priorities towards making sure we take care of our working class families. We've shifted our priorities in making sure that we are looking at affordable housing and what does that actually mean for our community. And we've shifted our focus on public safety. What does that mean to provide public safety in the city of Burien outside of just traditional policing, looking at diversion programs, addressing housing as a need in the public safety realm. And I want to continue in that fight for the next few years and being able to put my experience to work again and to continue serving, to work with council members to build more community coalitions. I was at the forefront of the hazard pay ordinance for our grocery workers and try to champion that as much as possible, as well as the LEAD program and other programs that are truly trying to see the true humanity and equity that is needed on a city council. So again, Crystal Marks, position 7, I'm running for re-election, and I would appreciate your endorsement tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next up is Sarah Moore.
Am I good?
Yes.
Thank you for the opportunity to introduce myself. My name is Sarah Moore. I'm a 19-year resident of Boulevard Park in the north end of Burien. I've raised my family here, a 19-year-old UW freshman, Noah, and my 31-year-old stepdaughter, Madeline, who chose Burien to move back to and call home. I give my time to Burien volunteering in our homeless shelters, on our parks board, with ACLU People Power of Burien, in climate activism as a scout parent, and in support of our immigrant communities. I shop at Burien's Farmers Market, eat in our many restaurants, and beachcomb at Seahurst Park. I will steward the water, air, and land that define and impact us as a city. I view housing as a human right and will work to address the need for housing stability for all of our residents. I see safety as more than law enforcement. I will advocate for more resources to address root causes of crime, including poverty and mental illness. The pandemic has impacted us all. The people of Burien are hurting. Many were touched by sickness in their own lives or their families. I lost my own job and found a new one caring for people impacted by housing insecurity who have been exposed to and are sick with COVID-19. Many suffered financially, academically, or emotionally due to isolation and economic impacts that have deepened existing inequities. It's time to start healing in Burien and across our region. I will work with intention together with community members and leaders at the state, county, and municipal level to bring transformational change to Burien. Thank you for considering me for endorsement.
Thank you. Next up is Mayor Jimmy Mata.
Thank you. Good afternoon, fellow Democrats. My name is Jimmy Mata. Raised as a farm worker in Eastern Washington, came to Western Washington. I've been in the labor movement since I was 22 years old. So I understand about workers' rights, pension, healthcare, continuing education, and the opportunity to make sure that you're able to buy a home. And so I'm happy that my son is not only a college graduate, but also a union carpenter, and I'm a union carpenter myself. First of all, I want to thank you for getting me elected back 4 years by the time this election is done, but 3 years ago. And it's going to have to happen again. Here's what we've done in Burien. We are now the second safest city in South King County. And that was not by accident, it was by design of working together and coming and combating hard issues that are confronting our community. Now we're figuring out what are we going to do with mental health and people living on our streets. And it's not a conversation we're going to shy away from, but I just believe that youth is very important to our community. Business is important. Families and government has to be open, transparent, and it needs to make sure that it comes in all forms, which means different languages, understanding different people from different backgrounds. And on top of that, all of us needs the following to make sure that we survive. It's water, our dirt, our air, and our sun. And so that's the next thing that we all have a responsibility to do. And I look forward for your endorsement and to move, continue to move for Burien forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Georgette Reyes.
Good evening. My name is Georgette Reyes. I'm running for City Council position number 5. I have been a resident of Burien since 1999. My goal and focus on this campaign, and once I get elected, is to see Burien taking charge of the problems and needs of the people, helping create new jobs by allowing new investors into our city, to bring more revenue to be used on crime prevention, affordable housing, drug and mental and social services, to help the homeless out of the street, and much more. Because I'm here to be your voice and help to even the scale into a city that is growing at a fast rate. And sometimes it's neglecting people, but I'm here to hear you. I'm here to be your voice. Please allow me to be your voice, and please allow me to be endorsed by you. I hear the silence upon injustice based on color, race, sex, age, national origin, ability, and mobility. And I can hear the cry of people. I hear you. Let me be your voice. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And next up and last, Charles Schaefer.
Hello, I'm Charles Schaefer. I'm running for position 3 on the city council. A little bit about me. I'm a lifetime Burien resident. I went to Highline Public Schools, then I went to the UW. I studied accounting, and I currently work as an accountant for several nonprofits and businesses in the area. And most importantly, I think, I volunteer 3 times a week at Transform Burien, which actually just moved into the building at the Sunnydale building where I went to elementary school. So in a way, things have come full circle on that note. Transform Burien is a great organization. We provide food, clothing, other resources for unhoused individuals in the community. And that's one of the reasons why housing justice is one of my main issues, along with police reform. Because having to have really gotten to know some of the individuals in our community that I'm sure many of you see on the street as you're going to Burien businesses, restaurants, whatever. You know, knowing that these people have stories, and actually the reason I'm choosing to run against another Democrat is just because the current council to me has not taken action on this. Things seem to be getting delayed with processes. You know, we have a housing project that has not yet been approved. It seems like a great project, and there are people on the street day in and day out. You know, how long should we make them wait? I hope I can get your endorsement. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to then turn this back over to Jordan.
Okay, so we are now into the question and answer portion of our evening. Just a reminder, the first candidate to respond will have 2 minutes, and each of the subsequent candidates will have 90 seconds. The first question will first be asked to Hugo Garcia. The question is, reducing airport noise and emissions is a primary concern for Burien residents. How would you steer the council to partner with other partners like the Port of Seattle and Federal Aviation Administration to accomplish that goal?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Having grown up here in the backyard of the airport, firsthand, definitely know the impacts of it, and I'll continue to advocate for support and advocacy really from our partners, both regionally within the port, county, and also state. I know currently the city and community members and citizens have done a lot from fighting that fight to making sure that we have safe and healthy environment. More often than not, it's those communities like myself here in the backyard that are live closest to the airport that have had to live with the challenging of that expansion over the years. So I will continue to support the community groups that have been making that fight. Continue to advocate and push on the port to make sure that they consider the closest municipalities to the airport as the ones that need to get more support, funding, and really collaboration, because it's something that's really needed in our own backyard. So it's something that I've lived through, and will continue to fight for and advocate, since it is right here and it won't be going away anytime soon.
Okay, and next, Deputy Mayor Marks.
Thank you. I serve on the King County Board of Health, and at our March meeting in 2021, we had a report that was brought back to us that was all about the disproportionate health impacts for folks that are living under the flight path from SeaTac Airport. And as Hugo rightly said, it does impact us all differently. Folks that live directly under the flight path are at greater risk of heart disease, asthma, and other lung problems that can come about from breathing in ultrafine particulate matter. As someone who lived in the Boulevard Park neighborhood and got married in that neighborhood, we had to pause every 2.5 minutes while flights flew overhead while we were saying our wedding vows. So I would continue to support our community-led groups that are advocating with a great passion and a level of experience that is commendable to the FAA, to the Port of Seattle, and continue to have those items brought forward on agendas at the City Council so that we're able to discuss them as a council and see what actions can be taken. I think our council has done a really good job at that so far in supporting community groups as they are out there doing the research and becoming the experts advising us on what is needed. I think that is continued to be needed at any city council level where you have community groups leading the way. And I would be committed to continuing that moving forward and staying on the Board of Health to really highlight the disproportionate health impacts.
And next, Sarah Moore.
We can't talk about Burien without discussing the flight paths over our head any more than we can about our beaches. We need to continue to look at the impacts and renew our conversation with the Port Commission, renew failing port packages in houses and installing them in new homes and new construction, and in houses that missed out on the port package the first time it was offered. I live in a house with a slowly failing port package, and when I do Zoom calls, I'm often asked what the background noise is. It's the airplanes every 1 minute and 20 seconds. And that leads me to think that one thing Burien needs to do is invite city, county, port, and district leaders to host meetings in the schools and churches impacted by the airplane noise pollution, to help give a sense of how impactful this actually is. I attended a city-sponsored meeting once at Southern Heights Elementary School, and it was very, I think, important and educational to the city leaders to have to pause conversations completely and realize that children were doing the same thing in their classrooms. Advocacy needs to creatively just demonstrate the impact to the people making the decisions. And I think the noise impact is one of the first things that can be demonstrated. The health impacts are severe, they are serious and must be taken seriously, but they are largely less visible than the very obvious sound impacts. I also want to say we need to push through over any setbacks and continue to address the impacts on our community.
Next, Mayor Mata.
Thank you. So I sit on the airport committee, and this is a big issue to Burien. We are the last city left with an airport committee. We have a new chair now who is Councilmember Aragon. And here's the thing, the reality is we're being impacted by noise. We're being impacted by health. Our economy is being impacted as well. So the other thing is that, you know, the question is, should people still be able to live on the flight path, or is it time to look at rezoning and maybe making it industrial so people can sell their homes and be able to buy another home? They're very expensive right now in King County. On top of that, I do believe that there needs to be more mitigation dollars coming to Burien to be able to figure out if some of these houses are failing because some of these airport packages were put together, you know, over 10 years ago. So the question is the insulation still working? Is the argon gas in between these double pane windows still working? On top of that, how safe is it to actually eat our vegetables and our fruits out of our yard? You know, there needs to be more studies done. On top of that, air quality that comes into our schools. There's several schools that are directly under the flight path or close to the flight path. So the question is, are these particles affecting our children and affecting their ability to learn? There's been studies that have shown that yes, noise does impact the ability to learn. The question is, we understand noise, but where are we at with the fine particles? And so more work needs to be done with this, and I'm happy that continue to have the discussion in the future. Thank you.
Next, Georgette Reyes.
Yes, I live under the plane line, and I live through the noise. I will try to get funding from the airport mainly to help make less noisy our homes. But funding realistic, it may not be realistic. Maybe we will have to collaborate with nearby cities and suburbs such Seattle, Renton, SeaTac to negotiate the airport. You know, the noise is affecting our health and the smoke. And I think we should all, they should share the cost as well. I just put some windows in my house that they were extremely expensive because it was required to the city since I'm remodeling the house. And I think getting the help for those people that cannot afford those windows to make it less noisy, it will be greatly appreciated. but who's going to pay for it? That is the question. The airport may not be able to do it on its own, but maybe their partners too, the people that actually use the airport more frequently, like, I don't know, FedEx, UPS, any of those companies that use it as a regular basis. That's what I will do, try to negotiate with the cities and the vendors. Thank you.
And finally, Charles Schaefer.
Yeah, so like several of the other candidates, I live in East Burien, so I'm well aware of the airplanes and the inconvenience that they cause. And I think we really need to hold the port accountable. They need to honor their commitments, whether it's noise mitigation or environmental mitigation. The environmental thing especially, though, they're a government agency. If they were a private corporation, I'm sure by now someone would have done something. We would say, oh, we need to regulate this, we can't allow it. People that are impacted by the pollution and the environmental damage, it doesn't matter if it's a government or a private entity, they should still be held to the same environmental standards. And I think the great thing, though, is we have a lot of partners and potential partners. We have the Quiet Skies citizens group right here in Burien. We have other cities. And I definitely want to we have a school district, and I want to bring all those partners to the table. But I think it's important to recognize that the port at this point is not a partner. They have not been acting like a partner, and really that should be one of the main goals of city council, because the health and safety of Burien residents is one of the top priorities of city government. We need to hold them accountable for the environmental damage.
Thank you. We're moving on to the next question, and the first person up will be Deputy Mayor Marks. So the question is, at last week's council meeting, the current council members were divided about whether to approve the construction of a permanent supportive housing site in Burien or postpone approval until after public comment. Candidates previously endorsed by our organization fell on both sides of the issue. For those current council members, please state how you voted and explain why. For those hoping to be elected, please state how you would have voted and explain why. And again, we'll begin with Deputy Mayor Marks.
Thanks for the question, Chris. So I voted in favor of, I voted against postponing the issue and would have voted in favor of passing the ordinance for the Downtown Emergency Services Center, or DESC. That is the 95 units of permanent supportive housing for a no barrier housing, a permanent home for 95 people, 25 of whom are veterans. And while they could be throughout King County, they could also be directly from inside of our own city. As you may know, Burien does not have permanent supportive housing. We do not have anything like this for folks who are in the 0 to 30% of area median income, or AMI. That means people that are at and well below, or at and well above the poverty line. They are not able to get by on their own. So these are folks with severe mental illness. These are folks with disabilities. They might be using drugs. They might be addicted to alcohol, but it does not matter, because housing first is the solution to get folks moving on a road to productivity, moving on a road to self-determination. So I was going to be a very strong vote in favor of this project as one of our affordable housing demonstration programs, which is a program that I was a strong proponent for when we passed it a few years ago. When it comes back to council after the fourth or fifth time we've discussed it, or the fourth or fifth time we've had public comment on it, on June 21st, I will be a yes vote for this project. It is something I am committed to. I've heard from our city community members. I've heard from some of our business owners. We have to start taking responsibility for the overwhelming flood of people experiencing homelessness in King County, and realize that Burien has not ever stepped up to the plate in this level before, and we have an opportunity to do so now.
Thank you.
Chris?
I'm waiting for the timer. The timer isn't.
Oh, okay, good.
Yes, I haven't forgotten.
I thought
Next
we'd
up is
lost
Sarah
you
Moore.
there.
No. Sarah Moore.
Thank you. I would have been a vote in favor of the DESC construction as part of Burien's affordable housing and as part of our demonstration program. Affordable housing is a misnomer. Any housing is expensive, and constructing new housing at the 0 to 30 AMI range is a huge challenge. DESC has stepped up to do this and expressed a willingness to engage with Burien to create affordable housing for people both within our community and outside of it. DESC has reached out. There's some concern that housing would not be for Burien residents. However, DESC has reached out to behavioral health care and social service organizations working in Burien, including NAVOS, Sound Health, Catholic Community Services, the LEAD program, REACH, and Mary's Place, as well as with Police Chief Ted Bowe, to try and center this project on Burien. There are people in Burien who would benefit from it, and I am confident that they would be candidates and be included in the housing for DESC. These organizations will help DESC locate the people within Burien in need of housing, and will also advocate loudly that the housing goes to Burien residents. Because many people try to keep a low profile, it can be hard to assess need without outreach, but the outreach is there, the need is there, and the offer is there to build the housing. I think that Burien should accept it.
Thank you. Next is Mayor Mata.
Thank you. So I'm the one that made the motion to postpone the decision on this, and I brought the motion, second and carried, to hold a public hearing. You know, we are going to be a city outside of Seattle that's going to have a facility that is helpful to our community. Here's a time when you have the most divisive issues in our community. We have the ability to sit down, have a discussion, educate, and inform those individuals that may be misinformed. It is a fact we're the second worst city in the country when it comes to mental health. I mean, that's one thing. Community, they feel it, they see it, it's true. I also want to make sure that, you know, when I make a vote, that I'm not in an illusion that I may not, you know, to be seeing all sides of it. On top of that, I want to make sure that I'm not rushed, and you know, we have a solid foundation and we move forward. And the third is that I'm not incompetent in making my decision. And so to me, I need more information. I want to hear from community, but more than anything, I want to hear from, you know, our city. We haven't had a public hearing as a government institution. I think it's important. Yeah, there's been meetings with DESC. We've had public meetings, but it hasn't been a public hearing. And so that's where I stand on this particular position. Now, where do I stand? You'll know when I make my vote on after the public hearing when it comes to the council. I do believe that we need housing for people in the 0 to 30. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up is Georgette Reyes.
Yes. About this project, I will support the project 100% because it's a good program. It's something this city needs. However, I will see another possible locations within the city of Burien. We need this program. We have a lot of people that will benefit from this program. But you know, they're concentrating all the efforts and stuff within the downtown Burien, and they're neglecting the areas outside of downtown Burien. And I think this building with all these programs, with all these benefits, will benefit the entire city. So if we were to put it in a different location, that will force the city to grow and improve that area of the city as well, not only the downtown area. I love what is being done in the downtown area for the past 10 years or so. It's looking beautiful. And I would like to see the entire Burien be like that. And this is an opportunity where they bringing us this wonderful program that is going to help so many people be off the street and get treatment and stuff, and especially get them into housing. And we should not let it go. We should support that program, and if anything, move it a little bit to another area so we can grow Old Burien and make Old Burien beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. Charles Schaefer.
Yes, I would have been a vote against postponement and enthusiastically in support of approving the project. Let's not forget, this had a unanimous recommendation of approval from the Planning Commission. It had already been discussed at 3 council meetings at which there was extensive public comment, both email and testimony. People called into the meeting. I called into the meeting in favor of it. And the DESC staff even appeared to answer questions from council. So there is no reason that council members did not have enough information to make a decision at the last meeting. And now I support education, I support dialogue, I think that's great. You can vote to pass the project and then still go on about educating the community. Maybe put something in Burien magazine dispelling some of the misconceptions about the project. That would be fantastic. But every meeting it gets put off is in another 2 weeks or another month, where there are people in our community out on the street that they're going to have to wait another length of time until this project gets built. It's just irresponsible to me why we would delay. DESC is a great group. They have a great track record. This costs the city nothing. It's a no-brainer to me. I would have enthusiastically voted in favor of it.
Thank you. And Hugo Garcia.
Thank you for that. I actually have served on the Planning Commission for the last 3.5, almost 4 years. And I was the chair of the Planning Commission when we took over a year into this project itself, into lifting up the affordable demonstration project for the city to look into 3 years into looking for and bringing more affordable housing. Affordable housing is one of the biggest crises that we have to deal with. And we were very intentional about making sure that the 0 to 30 was a priority for that demonstration project. And we were very intentional in the location of where we could look at all these different projects, because it's too often, and more often than not, when you have affordable housing, they tend to be shooed away. They tend to be put in the unhealthy areas under the flight path next to a freeway. So it's really not dignified for us to say, I'd like to support affordable housing, but not here. Let's put them over there. It's really important to make sure that that affordable housing is close to transit, to our services in our core. As someone that worked for over a year to bring this up to the city council, I know the fellow commissioners were disrespected, and it were really the solution that it was delayed. This is a critical project that cannot be brought forward by market rate developers. It's the only way to get it into our community is through this pilot, and I would have supported it.
Our next question is, which examples of systemic and institutional racism do you feel have the most significant impact on communities of color? How would you address those issues if elected to office? The first candidate to answer will be Sarah Moore.
I'm sorry. Took me just a second. This is something I want to talk about access a little bit. I believe that in Burien, we have a great deal of language access inequity, that we have a large Spanish-speaking population, a Vietnamese speaking population. We have some of the most language diversity of any part of King County or of the state. And that our city does a good job, but it needs to do a better job of language access. And particularly thinking about city government, things like city council meetings use, they use interpreters, and the interpreter is lined up so quickly before the meeting that you need to give notice several days in advance, and the meeting agenda may not be out within the time window when the interpreter needs to be lined up. I think language access goes on throughout the city, and other types of inequity, our police department, I believe, works well, but not well enough with communities of color. We have obviously the tragic story of the shooting of Tommy Lay in our history, and that doesn't go away. That doesn't get talked away. Community meetings don't make that go away. Time, effort, and demonstrated change make that go away. So that conversation is ongoing. And lastly, I think we need to do more to bring community leaders into conversation early and often, and to find more community leaders.
Mayor Mata, you'll go next.
I think it's learning what the word white privilege is. You know, it was interesting that I've never used that in a sentence, and just recently I had to put it in an article. I had to go back and ask the millennials, hey, mija, why is it that you guys use this word? You know, because I've never figured out why white people call each other racist. And so, you know, but now I understand it's, you know, my parents came here from Guatemala. I was born in this country. And sometimes that happens with even my own community, when we have the, you know, Afro-Latinos that have not been represented to a certain degree. And, you know, I think that to me, it's making sure that I understand that I have a privilege. One, two is that I call it out when I have to. But it's difficult. You know, I was raised in a time where, you know, it wasn't my turn to speak, and you know, you wait your turn, but don't say it that way, because if you say it that way, you're going to piss people off. And so I'm learning what that is. So I think where I'm at is that I'm going to continue to fight to make sure that our, you know, Muslim community has access to politics and has access to government, that has access to space, making sure that the Black coalition of contractors and professionals have the ability to have procurement within government when it comes to public dollars, and making sure that our young people can make sure that they have access to language, because, you know, we have 23 undocumented children at the border, meaning that they will be coming to our community. And how are we going to make sure that as a community we're inviting? So, you know, at the end of the day, I think my job is to continue to remember I have a privilege of being an American. I'm brown, and I need to continue to say that. Thank you.
Before the next person speaks, can I just say that is it possible to have the questions typed out for us to reference? It would be helpful.
I can post them in the chat. Would that?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm asking for. Yes, that would be
Okay.
fantastic. Thank you.
All right. I'm on it.
Georgette will be next.
Yes. Well, as I was listening to, language accessibility is a start, but we need more. It's about equity. People is not fully represented. We should all have access to politics and services on their own language according to their own needs. Because my needs are not the same of someone that cannot speak or hear. My needs are not the same as someone that is unable to read, or people that can't see. So we need to include everybody. We need to make sure everybody has the access, that equity is being in place on every sense, to be able to contact the city, to be able to allow them to participate on every single thing that the city has to do, not only meetings. I have been on the meetings of Burien, and I agree with the candidate that said that the information is not given to the interpreters, and it's very hard to relate fully the entire meeting to the people that is getting ready to listen. So having all that typed out it will be a good idea and many different languages, since we live in a very diverse city where there's no majority, it's all minorities, because even the white race is still a minority because everybody is almost equal in numbers. So we don't have one race, and we have to keep everybody together. Thank you.
Next will be Charles.
Thank you. I'd like to second what some of the candidates have said about language access. I think that's very important. But if I had to just pick one issue, it's police reform. And I really appreciate when Sarah Moore brought up the story of Tommy Lay. It's very tragic. And it just goes to show that when something goes wrong with policing, people could die. Okay, there are few, if any, other issues that the city council is going to address that you would say that about. And we had a rally last June in Town Square for Black Lives Matter. I was there, all the current council members were there. Yet the council has not taken any meaningful reform action. There was some discussion about a task force, but that didn't even have a support on the council. And I don't know necessarily that we need a task force. I think the demands from the affected community are pretty clear. But if we do need a task force, that would be at least another way to amplify the voices of the people of color. And then we could, as council, take the recommendations from that task force and enact them. And I just would commit to, unless there's some really unworkable thing, I would just commit to enacting whatever the task force says they need to feel safe, because that's the bottom line, is they want people to feel safe and not at fear of violence from public employees.
Hugo, you're next.
Thanks. As a brown immigrant that had came here as a kid, I've lived through the inequities of this institutional system that's not really set up for people of color. And what I mean by that is we have to start addressing the same things that we started to discuss: housing for all, education, improvement on our policing. Those are just three critical foundations to improve on the most significant impacts. So I'm sorry, someone said something, but making sure that we lead with services for those that are most in need of help, and supporting those that don't really connect to the city, right? Like my parents didn't understand what the city council did for Burien. I didn't really grow up understanding what they do for us. And we have to go into community and be in place and share with people how we are there to serve them. We not just at the city council, but at the commissions. We do have now interpretation at city council meetings, but we have to do it at the commissions. People don't even understand about what commissions do and how those systems interplay. So of course, language access is a must, but you have to bring it much, much further along, and working with our school districts and collaborating with our nonprofits on the ground and being in place is going to be critical.
And Deputy Mayor Marks.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, we started with this at the start of the meeting. We have to acknowledge one of the outcomes was the murder of George Floyd, and justice still hasn't been done. That was accountability. That's not even close to justice. I was really glad to hear fellow candidates mention the murder of Tommy Lay. And, really it falls on local government officials to then also step up and demand that the King County Sheriff resign immediately for the way that she handled or bungled, whatever the proper terminology is, the case and the messaging around it. These are things that you can use positions of power to do, is to speak out when things happen. But it goes further back, and I was glad to hear Hugo mention this, because 1845, the term manifest destiny suddenly shows up, and we as Americans, as white Americans, come spreading through the states and displacing indigenous people. And that continues to be now indigenous Native Alaskans. They have the highest rate of displacement in our communities. And so that's a ripple effect that lasts. We see that racial segregation is the direct result of intentional government policy. It's not an individual choice. When government policy is not for the people and it intentionally segregates, like we're seeing, if you look up racial segregation or racial covenants on the UW website, you'll see that exact thing. Think about Seahurst versus Boulevard Park. Where do our communities of color live? They are not in our more affluent communities.
I'm here. Thank you, Carla. Crystal. The next question will begin with Mayor Mata. So the question is kind of long, so I apologize if you need to have it repeated. Please don't hesitate to ask. In a recent piece titled "An Open Letter to My Community" regarding his position on the DES permit supporter, Mayor Mata wrote, "I am standing my ground, not against anyone, but in line with what I believe. And it is in moments like this where beliefs may deviate ever so slightly from other members of council that I'm quickly cast off, separated, because as a person of color, I am only ever useful or agreeable within white power structures and amongst white people when I nod my head, say yes, and don't stop to question or take a moment of grace to go back to the community for guidance. To what extent do you feel race plays a part in Burien's political power dynamics? How will you work to make sure that racism, specifically white supremacy, and the silencing or harassment of BIPOC individuals is unwelcome in Burien?" Mayor Mata.
Thank you very much for that question. You know, those words of just even using the word white, it was very hard for me because I feel like I'm in a community where I want to make sure that the Latino community, which was Empresarios Unidos, Padres Activos El Futuro, they have the ability to be able to voice their concerns and their opinion. Like, I know where I stand on this, like, you know, and I don't want to go out and, go out and not be listening to individuals who, you know, really disagree with what I think. You know, I love my sisters and my family, and even with them, they've married people outside of the views that I have. But at the end of the day, that's the uncles of my children, my nephews, of the people that I love. But you know, look, I'm proud to be an American, and I think that what I want to continue to work is to live in a country where we're fighting for humanity, that we're fighting for the human race. And it is true, you know, when I ask the question, why do I feel this way? Like, why do I feel this way? Why do I feel hurt about this? And I remember that I was raised in an all-white school in Ephrata, and I felt that same feeling. When I worked for the labor movement, I had the same feeling. When I opened up my own business and I'm fighting for DBE and expansion of the ability to grow my business, I feel the same feeling. And now in politics, I feel the same feeling. And as I'm going, okay, so why can't I have my own mind on this and not be judged before I even have the ability to show where I stand on it? And I think that that's why when you see Latinos or African Americans or, you know, people who are in government that have never been in politics, you know, the last thing you want to do is get into politics and then create enemies, or because you're not used to that kind of stuff. You're just trying to survive in life. You're just trying to make sure you keep your job and keep, you know, the person that's your boss happy. And, you know, I've been dealing with that my whole life. When my mother, you know, what we used interpreters, and they wouldn't say what my family was saying. They were using their words. And so I think it's important to continue to stand my ground on that. Hey, we're going to continue to build a community where it's for the human race. Thank you.
Thank you. Georgette Reyes.
Well, let me start my answer with this story that happened to me. I was calling my husband to his job because he had a new foreman and he needed the address to where he was going to go. And I call in English because my husband doesn't know the English language. And the guy right away, as soon as he heard my husband's last name, he said, "I don't speak Spanish." And I said, "Wait a minute, I thought I was speaking English." He was already making an assumption that, you know, a racist assumption, because I spoke to him in English, but he responded, I didn't speak Spanish. That was very hurtful for me because I was speaking in English, but I can tell just by the last name that there's been racist. There's been a lot of racism on this city, and it kind of frustrates me that it's so much racism because this is a multicultural city. I mean, we have from all over. I'm being confused with Russian. I'm being confused with other races, and it really, brings me mad about it. But I think we need to work, as a city, and make sure we don't make those assumptions, those bias, and and take every person as a human race. We are a human race. That's all there is. We are not nothing more, and we have to include those other people that are being left out because of their abilities or other matters. Thank you.
Thank you. Charles Schaefer.
Yeah, I think race is still a big issue here in Burien. Let's not just forget it was only 2 years ago. We had a slate of candidates run, Burien Proud, Burien First, and one of their main points, they wanted to repeal the sanctuary city ordinance. They were supported by a group, Respect Washington, which the Southern Poverty Law Center has designated as a hate group. So it's still an issue here in Burien. And I think as council members, local electeds, two things that I would do. One is I would try to educate and inform, and especially about how a lot of the systems, like Crystal mentioned, the zoning covenants, a lot of those systems have racist foundations, and we need to address those and we need to fix those. And the other thing is just using my position to amplify people of color, hearing what they want and hearing how I, as an elected official, can serve them. That's very important to me. But I appreciate the question because it's still a conversation that we need to have. And I think it'll be an ongoing conversation that we will continue to need to have for some time.
Thank you. Hugo?
Yeah, I'll share a story too. The reason I'm even here in front of you today is because of a hate act I witnessed right in 2017. In my neighborhood, someone spray painted the words "effing Mexicans" large on an RV 4 blocks from me, in a very large public street right in the neighborhood, and across the street was a Latino household. This shook me to my core that I'm seeing that hatred in my own backyard, in my own community. This was January 17, 2017. And it really got me to look into, well, why isn't anybody addressing this? Why, I went and knocked on the door of that neighbor and in Spanish and went and talked to him and said, this is not what the city is like. Burien is not like this. This is not okay. Let me know if you need help with reaching out to police. I've already contacted both the feds and the local police department. And I started to fight for that sanctuary city ordinance. And I started to fight for our other diverse community members, because I saw that the council at that time, there was no diversity, none at all. So when you ask, what dynamics do we see in Burien? Yes, we have a very diverse community, but it hasn't always traditionally been represented. And I've been doing that work to make sure that on the commissions we're represented, on community levels we're represented, and now at the council we're also represented, because it's an ongoing thing. So we'll push for the city staff, commissions, and candidates to always have training when it comes to racial equity.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Marks.
Yeah, so we do need to mention that white supremacy is something that works its way into every aspect of our lives. And regardless of how we see it playing out, I think it's easy to see. We have our mayor who is saying that he is feeling uncomfortable. He's feeling that he is not appreciated unless he does what white members of the community or white members of council tell him to do. You have to sit and listen to that and accept it and be willing to apologize for that. This is the first time I've been able to I think the first time that Jimmy and I have even seen each other since that statement was made. So as a white council member on the Burien City Council, I do need to apologize, and I intend to follow up with that in person to Mayor Mata. This isn't the place for it right here. I want to do it in private. But another thing is, as candidates, all of us have the responsibility to call out racist attacks against each other, regardless of whether we're politically aligned. That stuff is not acceptable. As city council members, we are responsible, I think, as Hugo is getting to pushing our staff to adopt a DEI framework that is actually real and legitimate and led by community. We've started doing that, and it's making that a priority. It's leading with budgetary allocations for that too, because a budget is a moral document. It's saying that we value making Burien an uncomfortable place for racism.
Thank you. Sarah?
It's striking that every one of us has a story that in and of itself is important and of note. Mine just took place last week at the farmer's market while I was filming a campaign shoot. A patron felt perfectly justified in chastising a young Black man, a community leader who had already done a great deal for Burien, for wearing a Black Lives Matter t-shirt. As I began to engage her, the other person with me, who happened to be Terry Lindecki, said the three words that needed most to be said: "That is unacceptable." And that needs to be said. I need to be an ally. I need to be better. I need to be quicker and to say my piece. This was a blatant act, but it reflects a deeply ingrained and often more subtle system of oppression that includes property damage that we've seen to BIPOC and Jewish members of our community. And it also includes Burien's history of trying to repeal the hard-fought sanctuary ordinance for our city. We need to acknowledge that our zoning is historically based on racial lines. We need to acknowledge that homelessness disproportionately impacts BIPOC community members, and that COVID-19 has hit the Latino community members harder than most others within our community. So inequities go beyond personal confrontation and take place at a deep level within the community and need to be addressed on all of those levels.
Thank you.
Our next question, we will begin with Georgette. The question is that Burien seems to be at a crossroads. The desire to help to develop its urban villages continue to grow, which drives rents higher, while wages struggle to catch up. Based on census data, the ratio of household income to rent in Seattle is $4.76 to the dollar. In Burien, it's $4.43. How do you plan to make sure Burien becomes and remains affordable for Burienians?
Well, that is a tough subject. I know the rents are going way high, and the people don't have the money, especially right now with the COVID-19. The people don't have the means to be paying more rent. And yeah, the income that people is getting in the city of Burien, it doesn't match up with the rents that are paying. So we need to kind of bring that income up somehow and put a stop to how high can the rent be, and maybe give incentives to the owners of properties to give affordable housing in exchange for something, you know, I don't know, maybe they can get, I'm not sure exactly what they're allowed to get as an incentive, but they could get maybe an ad on the paper or something, you know, something that can justify for them to be giving that break to the people. Maybe put them in the newspaper for the city, on the magazine, something. I mean, that can bring them more people into their business, but only if they lower the rent a little, or you know, work with the tenants to be able to pay. I know a lot of people is way behind on the rent, and they can't catch up. And then the salaries, whatever they're making, is too low. They need to be making a little bit more money. So That way they be able to afford housing. We need more housing. We should divide those properties that they have big lots. They should be subdivided into more properties, so even the owners of the property can get an extra income, and for that create more affordable housing, because there's not enough housing in Burien. We need more housing to start with. Thank you.
Charles, you're next.
So I'm also going to talk about housing because housing is the #1 expense for most people, especially people in lower income brackets. And I do support the Affordable Housing Demonstration Project. I think that's one piece of providing more housing. But another thing that I am particularly interested in that some other cities have done across the country is eliminating single family zoning. And I think that just having that option would allow owners of that property some additional room for development. Whether it's a mother-in-law unit or it's you have maybe a small like a duplex or something, whatever the property can sustain. But I think that's one, and also that helps to dismantle some of that racist zoning that we were talking about earlier. So that's another benefit of that. But that's the bottom line. I've said it before that housing is one of the main issues of my campaign. That's when you're talking about affordability. That's I think a big concern.
Hugo, you're next.
Thanks. I'll just segue from the last question and just adding that hatred shouldn't be the uniting force through which we can work. I mean, through unifying our community. We can work to make Burien a place where white folks can age in place, where Black and brown folks, workers at the airport can live close to Burien, because affordable housing is key. I've already done that type of work currently on the Planning Commission. We lifted up the Affordable Housing Demonstration Project to bring in more units. So we have to make sure that within reaching our yearly goal of 144 new housing units, that we promote affordable housing units to that. And it's not just about bringing new affordable housing, which is only able to be brought on by the nonprofit sector, because market rate housing will not do affordable housing without that support. We have to protect our existing affordable housing by strengthening our new tenant rights ordinance. That's great work that we did here at the city in protecting our current affordable housing. So protecting our current affordable housing, supporting affordable apartment buildings, property owners by helping improve their properties with programs like Habitat for Humanity has done, as well as also protecting our renters. We've already done great work to push forward for more efficient use of the current land that we have here in Burien, whether it was the ADU policies that we worked on to improve to have up to two units, to now the Affordable Housing Demonstration Project. So it's building more and keeping the affordable housing that we have present.
Next, Deputy Mayor Marks.
Yeah. Honestly, I think Hugo said it best. It's hard to follow a planning commissioner when you're talking about keeping a city affordable. So in addition, and same thing with Charles, eliminating single family zoning. It is not reasonable to continue to have most of a city zoned for single family when we have multiple families that are moving to the area. Families are expansive. It's also pretty racist to have a single family zoning policy across the city when families of color especially are multi-generational. And so having that space, allowing for space for community to exist together, by blocking that, we're forcing people further away from the cities that they've grown up in or where their communities are. And that makes things more expensive, because then, as another point, it's also building near transit opportunities and bringing transit to an area as well. So transit-oriented development is huge. Burien does not have an abundance of bus lines right now. I voted to approve the rapid H-line transit that goes down Ambon Boulevard into our transit center. I'm excited for it to come, and we're reimagining Ambon Boulevard and Boulevard Park, and that's all wonderful. But if we do not do that with an eye towards keeping it near transit and designing the whole thing together with community, we run the risk of increasing gentrification as well. So it is a multi-step process where a lot of things need to be kept in mind at the same time. And if we don't have community at the forefront of that, then what happens again is the same thing that happened with Fox Cove Apartments, which is mass evictions.
And Sarah Moore, you're next.
Thank you. As we come out of the COVID restrictions and reopen our city and our economy, we need to ensure that we do so in a way that respects what we've learned about our current systems and applies it forward. Burien's hazard pay will run out, the eviction moratorium will end, and we will need to be prepared when these things happen with a higher minimum wage, immediate plans for rent support, and a longer-term plan for housing. We must look at all opportunities and consider our expectations for how a city looks, functions, and is organized, including zoning for more clustered or multifamily housing at the 2, 4, and 6 family level in residential neighborhoods, exploring small grocery and shopping hubs to prevent food deserts, and other creative pathways to supporting getting people into homes that they can afford and stay in. That includes walkability within neighborhoods. And as Deputy Mayor Marks said, it includes transit out of neighborhoods to get to people to the jobs where they're working and therefore able to support themselves in their place of work. That's all.
And finally, Mayor Mata.
Well, as we live in the United States, water rights, property rights, and intellectual rights, I think it's something that we combat every day. And there is no question whether gentrification is coming to Burien. But here's the thing is that I think it's not only the city of Burien's elected officials, but it's also the county, the state, our House representatives, our senators, because here's the thing is that right now we need to figure out how we're going to buy buildings to make sure that mom and pop shops that Burien is well known for aren't disappearing. That what we get to celebrate as the foodie paradise that doesn't go away because people can't afford their rents at an apartment complex that has retail at the bottom that may not be as pretty, but it's affordable. So the other thing is making developers, right now there's 7 things that this developer has to meet when it comes to Burien. Number 1, 15% local hire, 15% women and minority owned businesses, LEED certified, 80% a medium. That's, they're going to be telling us their moral compass. And on top of that, they got to bring $250,000 for a pre-apprenticeship program and retail at the bottom. The H lanes expansion, we have the ability to have our youth go into some of those jobs that are going to be provided with the amount of money that we're going to be putting in through public dollars. I also think that with the highway and freeway that's going to be coming into Burien, that it's a great regional transportation program, but it's going to affect Burien. So we need to provide jobs and really what is going to be some of the other things that we can do for our youth. So thank you.
Thank you. Next question, we'll begin with Charles. And so the question is, funding for special education is an issue that has been raised in each of our forums, but it uniquely applies to Highline School District. Washington currently caps SPED funding at 13.5%, which means districts receive about $5,000 per student with disability as long as those students represent 13.5% or less of the student body. In Highline, they represent 15.4%. Because of the cap, Highline loses out on more than $1.7 million per year, the second biggest loss in the county, only to Seattle Public Schools. Of the districts in King County losing out on funds, 8 have a student body that is majority BIPOC, which I'd love to say Black, Indigenous, and people of color, which includes Highline. Is this an issue? Would you look to address it if elected? If not, why not? And if so, how? I'm starting with Charles.
Yeah, this is absolutely an issue. And I want to be careful because the school district is a separate government entity, so I don't want to step on their toes. But it's important to recognize that fully funding basic education is the paramount duty of the state. That's in the state constitution. The Supreme Court has ruled that. So where I think an opportunity for the city is the city is in a similar position in terms of we rely on the state for what funding options we have, and they're very regressive. And so I would work with the school district and I would work with our state legislative lobbyist to lobby for some more progressive taxation. I think that's the bottom line. That's what the city should be doing. And also with our parks department, any community programs, anything else that we can do to support students, particularly students of color, low-income students, LGBTQ students. I think that's an area for the city to participate, but I think the school district really should take the lead on that, and we should do what we can to support them.
Thank you. Hugo?
Thanks. As a product of the local Highline School District here, having grown up here and gone to school here, I definitely think this is important, and collaborating with the school board and attending those school board meetings is going to be crucial. But not just that, it's really listening and meeting with and talking to not just the youth at schools, but also the educators, right? So making sure that we have good relationships with the working educators, the rank and file of the school unions that are actually working and serving and teaching these students. So it is a state funding issue, but of course I would advocate and support making those changes as needed to make sure that we can, whether that's advocating for with our county council members to make sure that they're also supporting this type of amendment to a progressive tax structure, with our state representatives, federal, but really it all starts with our educators, students, and our school district board district, which I'm already really engaged with, and would build on those relationships just to make sure that they addressed the funding and the budgeting to be centered on those that have the highest needs.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Marks.
Yeah, so as a mother of 3 Highline School District students, only one does not go here, and that's because he lives up in Edmonds with his mom. So as a mom of 3 students who, we have a kiddo who is in special education programming at McMicken Heights Elementary over in SeaTac. This is crucial. This is impacting families on a very granular level. If they're not getting the supports for their students that they need in schools, where are they going to turn to? And with resources being so limited, especially during a pandemic, I mean, things pile on. There is a saying that poverty gains interest is the saying. So if you're starting off with less resources, that just gets piled on to you more and more and more in every aspect of your life. From a city point of view, I think it's important to work with the school board, as has been mentioned, to talk to the superintendent, as has been mentioned. But more so, it's looking at where can the city fill in the gaps with additional programming. Is there a way that we can step up and support our community as well? Because it's not enough just to say this is wrong, let's work on fixing it. It's finding some of the immediate stop gaps as well, so that more children aren't falling through the cracks. And I've got that experience in building coalitions. This is exactly what we had to do to pass hazard pay ordinance. This is what we had to do when people in Fox Cove were evicted, and in order to pass tenant pay or tenant protections as well. So an elected official has got to be able to work those connections and use that platform.
Thank you. Sarah?
Yes, I believe that Burien City leadership must work more closely with our school district to provide support for students in and out of class. As Charles Schaefer has said, there are opportunities with our Parks Department, and I would add with our Human Services to engage with students and families in and out of the school experience. As a council member, I will also have a unique opportunity to encourage families, educators, and students to advocate and to use my position to uplift their voices and to help them identify the places they need to go to be heard. I want Burien to foster strong relationships with it, not just with the school district, but with the individual schools and with the school board and educators and with parent groups that meet outside of the school to organize and speak out. Some of the strongest voices for students are parents who meet with each other and look at what needs to be done and put their effort into doing those things. And what they need is support from as many individuals and as many city leaders as possible. So finding what's already being said and what's already being done and amplifying that is one way that I can help bridge the difference between the school board and the position I would have in city council.
Thank you. Mayor Mata?
Yes, thank you. I think this is a very important conversation to have. You know, we talk about Burien, 54,000 residents, 42% people of color, 25% Latino. And if you break it down in the school system, and then there's questions, why is it that we have children dropping out of school? Why is it that we have these side effects that we're seeing on the streets? Why is it this? Why is it that? And the question is because we're not providing enough money at the base of education. You know, I'm very proud of my children who went to public school. They graduated from the Highline School District, and my sister did too. But you know, it's some sad stories to hear that public education, one of the most rich countries in the world, cannot fund our education appropriately. I mean, it's just incredible to me. But I just do believe that we need to continue to have that partnership with the Highline school board members. And, you know, I have met with some of them, but I also think that this is a state statute. I think more than anything, we need to come together and make sure that we figure out how we're going to go out and lobby the senators and the House representatives to change laws. Then on top of that, also, how do we, you know, engage the federal government? We do have the ability to send letters to the Biden's team to talk about, you know, Burien, because if we don't do it, and if we don't talk about the Highline School District, who else will? So I think that there's more work that can be done and more organizing that we can organize around, but I think we're heading in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you. And Georgette?
Yes, we cannot ignore education, you know, to everyone, regardless of their ability or disability. As an educator for special needs, I can see we need more financial support for those in need. I hear the pain of not knowing how are they going to be able to learn with their disadvantage. It's not only about race, but about ability. I'm here to help by helping raise or allocate funds to education for special needs. Also, remember, students in school means less crime. Also, parents of color tend not to be involved into education because their priority is to make money to bring home. We need to get the parents involved somehow. We need to create programs where the students are with the parents. I'm as a parent of one of those troublemakers. I see the crime that my son was going towards. I called the police on my own son, and the police say unless he does something terrible, they cannot intervene. We need to keep the kids in school, and we need to be, and in order to do that, we need to also educate the parents and make sure the parents are making enough money so they can take some time off to put into their kids. I was a single mother and I had trouble with that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For our next question, we will begin with Hugo. We've heard it repeated that Burien is one of the safest cities in South King County. However, looking at the most recent report from the Washington Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs, the number of total reported crimes rose 145% between 2018 and 2019, and the bulk of this increase came from rises in assault, burglary, larceny theft, motor vehicle theft, and property crime. While its crime rate comes in third only to Normandy Park and Covington, only 3 other cities saw increases in crime year over year, and Burien was second only to SeaTac. How do you view Burien's progress on public safety? Where do you feel the city has improved, and how would you like to help the city become safer?
Thank you for the question. I love living in Burien because of the public safety aspect of having lived here and grown up here and stayed here for as long as I have. And I really believe that addressing inequities on housing, economic development will lead to improvement to that safety. You know, most folks are concerned with those type of crimes, right? People are getting their mail stolen, having catalytic converters stolen from their front yards. And we've seen over the years that over policing is not really solving that, right? The last 10 years, we've only seen the impacts of plenty of resources for policing, but not enough for social services and human services and education and programming for youth, like previous candidates have mentioned. So I think we really have to double down by focusing on keeping folks housed, affordable housing, which we're looking at currently to improve. And that also includes the 0 to 30 income demographics that we mentioned, also providing more opportunity to our youth, whether it's through additional apprenticeship programs, so that our youth are not just in school, but also are looking to building careers and building into what they want to do after school. And of course, we want every child to go to college, but we also want to provide opportunities for entrepreneurship and having folks start up businesses, because if we provide those type of supports to our communities, it will address the root cause of safety, right? Poverty. We have to address that by providing income, jobs, and a safe place to live. I think if we focus on making sure that we improve our housing, that will also correlate to improvements to public safety. And I want to lead with services, empathy, kindness, and support when it comes to that.
Deputy Mayor Marks.
Yeah, this might be one of my favorite questions to answer, because this is where a lot of our potential is as a city. One thing is, in terms of our progress on public safety, it's important for people to know that the city of Burien is a contract city for the King County Sheriff's Office. So we get our policing services from the county. Part of that change in figures is how things have been reported. We used to keep track of all of our crime rates on an actual Excel spreadsheet, where folk like the Burien Police Department was factoring in certain crimes, and only the top tier crime, the most important or lethal or worse crime, was the one that was reported, and there would be multiple crimes underneath that might have been committed in that same instance, but the top thing was reported and then passed on. Now, as we see the increase, every crime that is committed is given its own line in this system. It's what the FBI uses. So the discrepancy there is very stark. So it looks like there's been this huge jump when there hasn't necessarily been a huge jump. People don't necessarily like to hear it, because folks like to live in that world of, everything's burning, the world's on fire, where the truth of the matter is our community takes care of each other. The crimes that are being committed are crimes of poverty in most instances. We have implemented diversion programs, and we're leading with services. Hugo was just beginning to touch on that. That means that when there's a problem taking place, we are meeting that not just with, let's arrest you and throw you in jail, and then recidivism happens. We're meeting that with, what's the root cause of it and how can we help you improve?
Next is Sarah.
Thank you. Public safety is about much more than law enforcement. It's about resources being available to address causes of crime, solutions like addressing poverty as a cause of some types of crime, and law enforcement being part of a team that trusts and activates mental health care workers early and continuously. We need to train our community on mental health first aid and our 911 operators on identifying mental health crisis and differentiating it from criminal behavior. The city must make a serious effort to engage the community who are living unhoused in Burien's downtown core, inviting and welcoming those voices into this discussion on safety. Community surveys reflect anger at the homeless community for making people feel unsafe, but it's important to hear the other side, that safety conversations directly impact those folks who are living outdoors, who live unsafe daily. There isn't money to increase funding to the police as we are now, and at the same time to fund all of the other programs we need. So Burien needs to build the appetite of residents to consider permanently funding more social services programs by demonstrating their effectiveness. We use grants to fund programming such as LEAD, and we need to turn those into line items in our permanent budget. We need to ask, what is the least painful way to prioritize those programs, knowing that social services may be investments that take longer to show effectiveness.
And Mayor Mata?
Thank you. So when it comes, I moved here about 22 years ago, and we had helicopters. We had some major problems, and when I got elected, we lost a young girl at the age of 13, Elizabeth Juarez and Eliana Cortez, who I do believe justice needs to be brought to them and hold those individuals accountable that murdered these two beautiful young ladies. On top of that, I also believe that drug dealers, can't have them. That's the reason that my father was passed away at 48 of a drug overdose. Yeah, people could say it's because it was his habit, but at the end of the day, it was the drugs and the amount of drugs on the street. I'm happy that the Burien Police Department is taking some of these drugs like fentanyl. Just had to bury a young lady last year who died of a fentanyl overdose, or actually the beginning of this year. And so there's some real major concerns about fentanyl on our streets. So I do believe that we have to hold people accountable, but at the same time, when we're having somebody suffer from mental health or drug addiction, we need to have programs. When people go to prison and they come back to our community, we need to make sure that they have a house to be able to land at, making sure that they stay away from people that are using drugs. I always wondered what was going to happen to my father when he got out of jail, because I knew he wasn't going to stay at my mom. He was going to go stay at his friends, and his friend was a user, so I knew he was going to go back into using drugs. So to me, it's Lead with Services. Lead has been able to place 27 people into housing. And so it's very important to change people's lives around through services, but also holding those accountable and need to be held accountable. Thank you.
Georgette, you're next.
Yes. Well, education is the key to stop crime. I saw that with my own son, since rather than helping him in school by being bipolar, he was singled out, which pushed him away to find a more accepting group of people, and that was the path of crime. I was a single mother trying to make ends meet, and there were no after-school programs for my son. There was no community services. There was nothing that could help me deal with him. When also, we need other services. Living under poverty level pushed my son into crime pathway since he wanted things I couldn't afford to give him. I was able only to afford my rent and the food. I can't imagine what the homeless community has to endure. All that is the situations that can get people into crime. If we were to have more programs in the community that are free, specifically, so the kids can go there, places where they can hang out more, like the Parents for Kids program that is here in Burien, but it's recent. It wasn't when my son was there. All those type of programs can help shape a kid on their more vulnerable age, so he doesn't turn into crime. Gangs are ready to take on our children, and drugs are there for them waiting. Thank you.
And Charles?
We can always do better on public safety, particularly when there are segments of our community that don't feel comfortable reporting crime because they don't trust the police. And also particularly when there are unhoused individuals in our community that just by the very nature of it are easy targets. I can go home at night, lock my door, and that gives me some level of security that they don't have. I absolutely think we need to take money from police, divert it to human services. And I particularly like what Sarah said about the 911 dispatchers. I would go a step further with that. And I would say if we identify a particular 911 call as somebody's in crisis, maybe the best person to respond to that isn't a police officer. It's a medical professional who's been trained to handle that type of situation. And, you know, I think our chief of police here in Burien, Chief Bo, has said to his credit that you can throw all the officers you want at something and that's not going to make crime go away. So, you know, we just need a holistic approach. And yeah, but I think a significant portion of it, if we invest in human services, that investment up front will save us police costs in the end. So it's actually a fiscally responsible thing to do as well, beyond just the obvious human impact of it's better to provide services to people than it is to drag them through the criminal justice system.
Thank you. Well, we're at the end of the questions that we can ask, and I want to thank all the candidates for the attention paid to this and some of the questions we had. Before we get into closing statements, I want to encourage you all to put your contact information in the chat box so that constituents and other interested people can reach out to you if they have further questions or follow up on things that you said here today. With that being said, we'll do closing statements, and we'll start with Ugo. Ugo, are you there? I don't know.
It looks like he might have frozen. Let's move on to the next one and we can circle back to him.
We'll come back to him. Deputy Mayor Marks.
Sure. First, I just want to thank you all for taking time out of your evening. I know we're not the only city whose election you are covering, and it does mean a lot that you care and continue to care about all of the cities within the 34th. It's really important that we continue to do so and continue to show up for cities outside of Seattle. Again, I am running for re-election to the Burien City Council because I don't feel that the work of our city is done. I feel like I have done my best to reach out to community members proactively and say, hey, this is an issue that is coming before us on council. What are your thoughts? How are you wanting me to vote in a way that aligns with your values and your needs? I did that with tenant protections, passing along information on here's how city makes decisions. Here's how these fellow council members prefer to be interacted with. Here's what this definition means. Here's what we are and are not allowed to do legally as a council. And to accept the pushback on things and, well, you should be doing these things, or you should look for changing those laws, and taking that to heart. I think that that is a really important quality in a city council member, and that's something I want to continue bringing forward. Additionally, I want to continue to build those strong coalitions to continue to fight for worker protections in our city. We passed the hazard pay ordinance, we got sued for it, and we beat the lawsuit. These are bold steps that our city needs to be taking to show other cities in South King County that it is time for us to break out of this siloed mindset that is all about we got ours and you can go ahead and fight for yours. No, we need to help each other fight for what we get, because our struggle is a shared struggle. And until we embrace that, until we live those values, we will not truly protect and fight for everyone in our city. So I ask that you please head to the website, crystalforburien.com, and contact me if you would like to do so. And thank you for your support.
Thank you. Sarah?
Thank you. I want to briefly reflect on things I've learned working at Pacific Science Center from many hundreds of informal conversations. And that's going to lead into one topic that wasn't discussed. When people are afraid of an issue, fear shuts down conversation. Conversation needs to be framed in terms of what can we do? And one topic that never came up was the environment and climate change. And I'd like to talk a little bit about that, as it is something that I think needs reframing. Studies have shown that people are most likely to take action on local issues, things that they love, such as beaches, air quality, and trees. Studies repeatedly show that people are most likely to take action at a community level. Individual action feels futile. National or world action seems impossible. But within a community, and this applies not only to the environment, but to anything, Within a community, there is power to act. That is why I joined People for Climate Action to hold leaders up to their commitments on greenhouse gas reduction. And it's how any type of action can take place. With this come hyperlocal actions, such as the water contamination issues from flooding in my own neighborhood, which I am proud to say every single Burien City Council member showed up to investigate and to learn about. I believe that local action at a city level, at a community level, a neighborhood level is where change can happen, and I would like to be part of that change. Thank you for considering my endorsement.
Thank you.
Mayor Mata.
Thank you very much, Democrats. First of all, I'm proud to be a Democrat. You know, when I was a young person in Eastern Washington and afraid to go to school, I asked my teacher, what am I? Am I a Democrat or am I a Republican? And she goes, well, I can't really tell you. He goes, when you grow up, you'll find out what you are. And I'm glad that when I was 20 years old, 20 years old, I met labor. And I figured that I'm a Democrat. I'm proud to be a Democrat. Democrats, it's time that, you know, we come together, not only locally, but nationally and regionally, you know, and that we elect the right people. Look, when it's a Democrat towards a Democrat, I mean, we know that the results are going to be somewhat the same. We may get there a little differently, but at the end of the day, it's going to be about, you know, the people in need, on how do we, you know, police our community, on how do we feed our poor, on, you know, how do we make sure that our human rights are being met, immigration, and I can go on and on, small business. But, you know, at the end of the day, I think why I'm so proud to be a Democrat is because we are the party that actually, you know, it doesn't matter. I mean, look, I love my white counterparts and the individuals that are right there in the front line with me, but the Democrats are always the ones that are pushing, and we can, you know, we can pull each other's hair, but at the end of the day, we're going to be the loudest voice for democracy, for making sure that there's real equality, that there's freedom maintained in this country. And I'm a proud American, proud that I'm the mayor of the city of Burien, and I want your endorsement, and I want to get down and get dirty, and let's win this campaign. Thank you.
Thank you. Juliet?
Well, I like to start with, I hear you. I hear you. I want to be the voice of those who are being neglected or abused on any way due to race, origin, color, sex, religion, ability, etc. I will listen and adhere to the possible solutions to the problem. Listen carefully and then bring them to the city council and see what we can do. But the most important thing also is to follow up with them. People feel like nobody hears what they have to say. And even though sometimes things are brought up to light, because they are not follow up, there's no follow up to it, they think they were neglected, that they were not listened to. I hear them. So I will go back to them and I will say, okay, this is what the problem was. This is what the solutions you offer, but there were many other solutions on the table. And this is the solution that we all choose to get to that specific problem. That way they know we did listen. We did act on it somehow. It wasn't their wish probably, because it's not always gonna go everybody's way. Someone has to, you know, win and someone has to lose. But trying to make sure they know that we hear them. I hear them and I wanna be their voice because I hear. Thank you.
Thank you. Charles?
First of all, thank you to the 34th District Democrats for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. I actually agree with Jimmy, basically, that what this comes down to is how we take care of our poor, how we police our community. And I think all the candidates tonight have offered you good solutions on that. I have no doubt that anyone in here, if elected, will do a satisfactory job. But I think it really comes down to who you feel can do the best job of that for each position. And with my remaining minute, I want to talk a little bit more about my volunteer and my community experience. Also, I will say I've testified extensively at council meetings, So if you want to go look up my public comments on various issues, that's all public record. But in addition to 3 times a week at Transform Burien, I've also volunteered at Burien Severe Weather Shelter, Burien Clean Sweep. Back pre-pandemic, I was, you might have seen me at the Strawberry Festival serving strawberry shortcake to support the Burien Arts Association. That was a fun one. I enjoyed doing that. Also, I'm involved with ACLU Burien People Power. I'm the treasurer for Burien White Center Migrant Watch, bookkeeper for Tukwila Pantry. I'm in Community Visions, various civic groups. So I have a long history of involvement, and I appreciate the chance to speak to you tonight. I would appreciate your support, and I would definitely appreciate your endorsement. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you guys hear me?
And Ugo, yes, go ahead.
Okay, apologies, I had tech issues there. I'll just start with, you know, the currently you've seen me a lot out with this sweatshirt I'm wearing, which says empathy, kindness, and respect. As someone who was in essence raised here in the 34th district after immigrating here as a young kid, I've never really felt really connected to my local government, right? I just try to do what I could to help my parents and then to help my community, my immigrant community, get through finances and banking. But I feel that call to step up 5 years ago when I started to see that wasn't enough. And I knew that I had to do the work. So I started attending those council meetings that I saw Charles and many others at. I started fighting for the sanctuary city ordinance. I started supporting other candidates that are now here elected, because I knew I had to put in the work. I got on the planning commission. I got on the local small business commission, because I knew if I ever wanted to have a chance to represent the people that I grew up with in our community, of an immigrant, Latino, a person of color, that I would have to be able to show that my resume could put me into this space. But I know that my parents settled here because that vision of Burien as a welcoming and diverse and inclusive city is what I still see when I look around town. It's a community that opens its arms to all residents in so many different languages, and a place that supports and loves its local business, small businesses. And that's why I'm running, and hopefully I get your support to do that and your endorsement. Thank you so much, 34 Dems.
Thank you. I want to turn this over to our chair.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, candidates. That wraps up the 34th LD Burien City Council Forum. 3 down and 1 to go. I'd like to thank all of our candidates for their time this evening and wish them the best of luck with their campaigns. If you'd like to volunteer to help us get out the vote in Burien this year, please sign up to help. I've placed a link in the chat for you now. Click that link and it will take you to a really quick sign up page. Many of the candidates in this race were not able to speak with us tonight due to their timing. So I urge you to do your homework and cast your ballot only for those you know more about and you know how they operate in the community and their beliefs. We're looking for the best Democrat for the job. I'd like to invite all of you to the Seattle Mayor Forum a week from Saturday, June 5th from 11 to 1. And you can find the link to that on our website. Thanks everyone for your time tonight. Taking the time to educate yourself is the first step in democracy. Thank you, candidates, and have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Adios, gracias, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you, everybody.
Night,
Nos
night.
vemos pronto, te oigo.